Welcome to Wine with Bill, and I'm Bill. Today's guest is a very special person, a very special winemaker, and when we talk to Nicole Walsh, she is going to tell us some very important things. What's the philosophy of her winery? How did she arrive at the name of her winery? Some great wines that she makes and some great things she's doing with very unique wines, and it's going to be a lot of fun. Nicole Walsh, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming here. I got to say, I love the name of your winery. Can you give us the short version of how did it come about? What's it mean, etc.?
Sure. Syrah. When I was trying to think of a name, I stumbled across a wonderful article by Andrew Jefford. He's a great wine writer, and the article was called Astonishment, Wine and Astonishment. And after reading that article, I really came away with this. It really resonated with me. I came with this feeling of this is exactly how I feel about wine. In the article, it's talking a lot about the being of wine and how wine is a really special medium to translate place. You know, not many products of the earth can do that, you know, to really describe that terroir, right? To talk about the climate and the soil and have this medium translate that into a glass, into your enjoyment. And he talked about the word in German to be, and I thought, you know what, I speak Spanish. I have a much more, affiliation with the Spanish language. What is it in Spanish? Oh, wait, ser. Oh. And I thought that I really like how that sounds. And I looked it up, in the dictionary, the Spanish dictionary, and it was, to express identity or origin. And I thought that's exactly what I want to do. I want to express that identity and origin. And I want to create wines that are vineyard designate, varietal wines that are really expressing that place in a natural way. And that you can really say, okay, this variety came from this vineyard, this vintage, and this is what it tastes like. There's no, blending is really fun, and I've really enjoyed it over the years. And I still blend a lot for other brands that I am a winemaker for. But for Syrah, I really wanted to be true to that varietal character.
Well, it sounds like that was kind of sort of an aha moment for you.
Yes, absolutely.
Well,
yeah.
Tell us about the journey that got you to where you are here today.
Sure. It's kind of a long road. I started in Michigan, of all places.
Michigan, United States? Whoa.
I'm from Michigan. And I was actually, in school at Michigan State University. And I was started off in horticulture as my major. And I was trying to choose a path within the major. Started to kind of, I spent a summer on an organic vegetable farm and thought, no, it was a great experience. I really don't want to have be a vegetable farmer. So I knew I wanted a perennial crop. I wanted something. I love fruit. I loved pruning. Apple trees and just woody plant physiology. I just really was drawn to that. And it just dawned on me, wait a minute, grapes, you can make wine from grapes. I didn't really have any background, I'm not in a family that really was much of wine drinkers, actually.
You're not Mondavi, you're not Gallo.
No. And I thought, okay, I got to look into this. And at the time, Michigan State, they didn't offer an undergrad degree, but there was a graduate program in viticulture and enology. And so I started talking to the graduate professors, and they said, oh, hey, do you want to make some wine? We have a winery here. So that fall, I was a sophomore, and I said, sure, I'll make some wine. And that's really when I fell in love with the whole process. I made 5 gallons of a Seyval Blanc, which is a hybrid grape. In Michigan, you have to use cold hardy varieties typically. And I remember just going to the winery every day, just so excited, capturing everything in a big log, a diary about the whole fermentation process. And I think another, great moment for me was taking that around Christmas time. I took that wine and shared it with family and friends. and it was actually pretty good. And just to see that response, and have that feeling of, wow, I helped create this, and I'm loving that I get to talk about it and share it with people, and it's bringing happiness and joy to everyone, and I thought, I want to keep doing this. I want to learn more and more, and that's really where it began.
That was the genesis of all of it.
Yep.
And I think it's been said, and it wasn't me for the first time, but somebody said a long time ago, water keeps people apart, wine brings people together. Accurate?
Yeah, pretty accurate.
Okay. So after school, did you travel? Did you stay local for a while? What did you do?
Right out of school, I actually got a job as a vineyard manager to start at Leelanau Wine Cellars, which is up in northern Michigan. Great experience, and I was dead set on converting them to organic farming, and that was really fun. And then I moved on to another winery up in northern Michigan for a few years, Bel Lago, and that was really a great experience because the state viticulturalist actually was the owner.
Oh.
And he really was very much into experimenting with lots of different varieties from Alsace and Germany, and then also just even some hybrids as well, just playing around because, Michigan has such a short growing season. It's really hard to get red grapes ripe. So a lot of good sparkling wine and good Riesling and Gewürztraminer there. So I worked there, almost 4 years, and then moved to Santa Cruz and started working for Bonnie Doon Vineyard, actually.
Oh, okay.
Start of 2001, and really stayed with them for 20 plus years, and really still right now I'm still making the wine for Bonnie Doon. I took a year off in 2008 and went to New Zealand and was a vineyard manager and made wine there from that vineyard, and then also did some consulting winemaking in New Zealand in the Marlborough region, and that was an incredible experience as well.
Well, it sounds like you've got a lot of balance in everything, places that you've been, the roles that you did. So for the record, when did Syrah come into existence, and what was your first vintage or whatever, your first bottle?
Yeah, so when I came back from New Zealand, actually, it was 2009, and the financial crisis, was happening, and I really had a kind of a soul-searching moment for me of, wow, it was just, there was such, upheaval, I guess, in the wine industry and just really in the country. And I just felt like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know if, the wineries I'm working for are going to even survive this. And do I want to, what do I want to do? Do I want to stay what I'm doing? And I thought, and I looked all over the place and talked with a lot of people. And it really came down to a good friend who just kept saying, Nicole, you're a winemaker. Just make some wine. Why don't you start something on your own? And I thought, I don't know. I don't have any money. I don't, And they said, well, why don't you talk to Randall, the owner of Bonnie Doon? Why don't you see if you can just start something here, while you're making wine for Bonnie Doon? And I thought, okay, I'll try. And 2012 was the first vintage.
Okay.
So I basically just started with a few varieties that I thought, well, I don't want to completely compete with Bonnie Doon. I was still winemaking for them, and I thought, I'm going to play around with some of the grapes that I actually didn't have much experience with. I had Pinot Noir experience in New Zealand, and the guy I worked for there was English, and he had spent a long time in Burgundy, so I had learned a lot of great techniques from him. And I thought, here I am in the Santa Cruz mountain region. I really don't have any experience with that, and I want that experience. I want to know the Santa Cruz mountains, and I want to work with the fruit there. So that's what I started with. Then I knew I wanted to make Riesling. It's just one of my favorite varieties. So I knew I wanted to go to this grower in the Cienega Valley, and it was a grower, Pat Wers, that I used to work with, making pack rim Riesling back in the day when Bonnie Doon was making Riesling in a large amount. That brand got moved to Washington, and I think it was about 2009. And so I thought, well, I bet I bet Pat might have some fruit for me. So I went to go see him, and I thought, Pat, I really want to make Riesling. Can we do something? So I worked with him, and he was the one that came and said, you're starting your own label. I really want you to look at this other variety called Cabernet Pfeffer. And I thought, Pat, I don't really know anything about that variety. I'm starting, it's true. I'm starting my own label, and I don't really want to start it with something I have never heard of, and what's it like? Oh, well, it used to be a blender, at the old Almaden. Anyway, long story, that was how I started with those 3 varieties.
Well, the Pfeffer, quite frankly, if it isn't the star of your winery, it's a very, very prominent one. It's so unique, and that's why I wanted to ask you, and I'm so intrigued with your winery and the wines that you're producing. Tell us some of the AVAs that you're getting the grapes from, and when you mentioned terroir and this whole intertwine of the earth, the climate, the grape, etc. Tell us some of the special properties of where you're getting the grapes and the whole product, why it's so unique. Because it sounds like there's something special, and that's why it goes with the name of your winery. Your wines are a personification of the winery's names.
Thanks. Yeah. I mean, because I've had so much time working with so many different vineyards, with my experience, especially with Bonnie Doon, all over the state really, and working with lots of, oddball varieties too, you get a sense of, okay, which climates and which grapes are suited, and what are the characters from those climates and soils, that are favorable, and what I want to drink, and what I want to make really. And I guess I've always been, I gravitate towards cool climate vineyards, vineyards that are, either closer to the ocean or just have a heavily influenced by the ocean. So I work with, Santa Cruz Mountains, definitely, and then Cienega Valley is one of my favorite appellations.
For the sake of our viewers and listeners, give us the geographic GPS. Where the heck is it, and what makes it so unique?
It's really tucked away in the Gabilan mountain region, which runs on the east side of the Salinas Valley. So if you can pinpoint Hollister, if you just go south of Hollister down into that, Cienega Road is really kind of follows down into the mountains there. And it's surprising because when you talk about Hollister, I think some people think, oh, that's hot. And when I explain, actually the Cienega Valley is at 1,000-foot elevation, and then it's on the east side of the Gabilans. And just the way that microclimate works, it's actually one of the coolest regions. It's some of the latest, fruit I bring in ever, with each harvest. It takes, say, if they have Mourvedre planted, it's be months later than, say, Contra Costa.
It's different.
Very different. So very cool climate. I also really love the soils, decomposed granite with limestone. Very special. But also, the vineyards, there's a lot of old vine vineyards there, 100-year-old, 130-year-old vines, dry farmed, head trained, just, that's without trellis. I mean, just really special.
For sure. Well, Nicole, we're going to take a break right now, but when we come back, we're going to talk about some of these specific bottles of wine, what's their unique characteristics, what food recommendations, what pairings would you have, and we're going to talk about the future of your winery. We know where you've been, kind of, sort of, but where do you think you should go in the next 5 years? And we want to talk about a very special place that I've been to. You've been there a lot more than I have. It's your tasting room in Aptos, California. Great. We'll be right back.
Thank you to the Los Gatos Community Foundation for their continued support of KCAT Public Media. Because of groups like the Los Gatos Community Foundation, KCAT has been able to inspire, educate, entertain, and inform our community through the magic of television and digital media for over 38 years. Thank you.
We're back in Nicole. You got some beautiful bottles of wine here. Once you get your label, is awesome. But let's talk about what's inside those bottles, and take us maybe through the bottles here. Then we're going to have some fun talking about the canned wine here.
Sure. Yeah, I brought a few selections. There's a Vermentino from Arroyo Seco, Cedar Lane Vineyard, just beautiful vineyard. Really love the soil climate. Again, we talked about the river rocks of Arroyo Seco and just the minerality that comes from that soil, and I'd say just the marine character that comes through in this Vermentino. Really beautiful. The Cinsaut is the next one on the table. That's a really special variety, very floral and pretty, and just you don't see many varietal Cinsauts. It's typically a blender, Southern Rhone variety that can be more of a filler grape, I'd say, but on its own it can be really.
I had this in the flight tasting at your tasting room, and it's beautiful in the glass, and it's beautiful to taste.
Yeah, it has just like a beautiful elegance, I think, to it.
It's I won't say it was unexpected, but it was just it was wonderful.
Oh.
It was, congratulations.
Thank you. And then on the right there's the Cabernet Pfeffer, kind of touched on earlier. It's a grape that originally, when I first started making Cabernet Pfeffer, the grower actually told me this story, and it was actually in Jancis Robinson's books too, or if you even Googled it, you'd probably find the story of it being a hybrid, Trousseau and Cabernet Sauvignon. And this, William Pfeffer, who was a grape breeder in the 19th century. And so I always told that story, and then found out, I want to say it was maybe 2016, took the plant material to Foundation Plant Services out of UC Davis, and we found that it actually has no relation to Cabernet Sauvignon. It's its own grape variety.
Wow.
It's not a hybrid. It actually is this grape it's grown in France called Mourvedre. And so anyway, that was really surprising to know that it's its own grape variety, and it really is. I mean, when people ask me, oh, what's Cabernet Pfeffer like? And I thought, it's like no other grape I find. It has this wonderful white pepper quality, pomegranate, cranberry. It's got this, it's delicate but yet structured. I find the old vine especially layered and provides this really wonderful earthy mid palate. So it's really special, I think.
Well, I do know, I've found from sources that you have an advanced degree in sommelier training. Is that correct? Wine program?
I did the diploma.
Are you level 4?
I have the diploma, yeah.
Okay. So our viewers and listeners always liked, I get the emails, and they're glad that one or two food pairings that you think is going to just nail it with, let's go whatever order you went to with the ones we've talked about here so far, but what's going to really bring out the great characteristics of the wine to go with the food?
I mean, I touched a little bit on the Vermentino with the marine character, right. And I really do think that seafood and shellfish, it's just really beautiful. The Cinsaut is one of, I'd say, really versatile wines, because it tends to just, I could have it with pizza, I could have it with a salad, I could have it just sipping, and with some charcuterie. There's a lot of different ways you could go with it. It's very light. There's really not a lot of structure or tannin in that wine, but it's, like a Pinot Noir or something that is really light.
It sounds like a wine for all seasons.
You could find a lot of different pairings for that. Roasted vegetables, really, it could go on and on. I find the Cabernet Pfeffer, one of the best pairings is lamb. It's really, really exquisite with lamb. But again, I enjoy it with all kinds of pasta and pizza and, Italian dishes too. There's a lot of great acidity, kind of similar to, Italian. It
sounds like all your wines here speak to multiple pairings, multiple matches whatever, and they're just not one hit. Okay, you got to have it with animal fat. Nope, that's it. Okay, you can't cross over. But all your wines so far, they just seem to hit it on a bunch of levels.
Yeah, I would say I really do strive to make wines that are food wines. You know,
Food
they
friendly.
really want to be paired with food. They have that bright natural acidity. Just they have nice finishes. But that's my favorite thing to do is pair with food, and have a winemaker dinner or anything like that where I can really watch the wine and the food complement each other and carry it and bring out different nuances, and it's fun.
Okay, well, how about these little, I'll call them the smaller guys and gals, the 250 milliliter cans?
Yeah.
What do we have here? And
I brought a couple, the sparkling Riesling and another Cabernet Pfeffer, actually. And I also make a rosé in the can. I just didn't have that right here, but it's super fun to be able to work with this company. Maker approached me a few years ago, actually, and I thought, sure, I'd love to work with wine in a can. And one thing I think we're really striving for is finding ways to always improve that quality. And one of the things we started to realize was that you have to keep sulfur levels very low, almost non-existent, because it can create some problems with the quality. And I'm happy to say that Riesling, there's no sulfur. I didn't add any sulfur, which I'd never, I usually I'm low,
unusual.
but I'm usually like, it's an antioxidant, antimicrobial, right? You wanted to make sure everything's good. And because this is sparkling, we carbonated and, had very anaerobic conditions. It's beautiful. And I love that there's no added sulfur. So that's something
do you
really
have,
special.
going forward, do you have some other ones that you're working on or will be canning, bottling, whatever the correct term is for maker wine?
Well, I like, for instance, this year I'm working with Gruner Veltliner, and
Great.
I
love it.
We might be putting that in a can. One of the other wines that I make every year is a dry orange muscat, and I'd really like to see that in a can eventually. I think that would be really perfect. So
Well,
we'll
good.
see.
Well, let's talk about, we've mentioned your tasting room, but what's the best platforms, ways for people to get your wines, and tell us what to do.
The tasting room is definitely a great place to come if you can, because
For the record, where is it located?
Oh, it's in Aptos, basically Santa Cruz County.
15 Parade Street.
10 Parade Street.
Excuse me for the error in the number, but it's kind of by the old hotel there that's being...
Yep, right next to the Bayview Hotel, 10 Parade Street, Suite B in Aptos. It's probably, I would say, the best place to be able to taste these different varieties.
Okay.
There's, I have a small distribution. I mean, I'm a small winery. I tend to really like to just work with direct to consumer, and I have a website.
You have a website, and
Syrah Winery.
what is it?
SarahWinery.com.
Okay, and you have a wine club?
I do have a wine club, yeah.
What's the advantages of being a wine club member?
So the wine club is in a bit of a state of evolution with, we're going to be bringing Bonnie Doon vineyard wines into the tasting room soon. And we are going to be creating a wine club together. So we're going to be adding some of those wines in the offering for the wine club. And so we're actually still working on what that offering is going to be, but it's going to be really approachable and really fun.
And a win-win for everybody.
Yeah.
Including the consumer.
Well, and the idea really is wine exploration, because there's a lot of really different varieties, different styles. I make sparkling wine, the traditional method champenoise. I've got some really fun wines coming, like vermouth, that'll be ready this winter, actually.
Wow.
Yeah, so just, yeah, some really new varieties like Sagrantino, and I actually even have a Cabernet Sauvignon that I'm going to be releasing as well.
Well, it sounds like you're busy, and it's all going well. Is there something that's in the works now that I won't say is so secret that if you tell me you'll have to kill me, but is there something that you're particularly proud of that you haven't mentioned already, as far as the directions you're going with your wines, your tasting room expansion, etc.?
I think that's, we touched on that. I really, it's like the Dune to Earth is what the tasting room is going to be called.
Wow.
Kind of a play on, a pun, which is very Bonnie Doon, down to earth, really, and there's a lot of really exciting ideas that we're having. Something that I've got to do this year is travel, and I got to go to Argentina and Chile and Spain, and might be bringing in some imported wines we're talking about.
Well,
so
I commend you. And by the way, I don't know what vibe you want to create at your tasting room, but with me, you nailed it, whether it was indoors or outdoors. And as I told Tanya, the host that day, I had it in Pinot, I said, these are better than the ones I had in Mendoza, Argentina. So keep up the good work.
Thanks.
Good. Well, Nicole Walsh, I hope you had as much fun as I did, but thank you for coming in today. And, all this talk about wine, I think I'm going to go home and open a bottle.
That sounds good.
Have a good evening.
You too.
Good to be with you.